we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea.
War must not break out again on the Korean Peninsula.
No war. Yes, peace.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. They will be met with fire and fury. It makes sense for North Korea to come to the table and to make a deal. I do see certain movement.
Well, the president's trip continuing Japan, here in South Korea, then on to Beijing and China, and then you have Vietnam and the Philippines. Obviously, North Korea and the threat from North Korea hanging over this entire trip. You saw our trip to the DMZ earlier in the show. Let's bring in our panel back in Washington. Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics co-founder and publisher. Catherine Lucy, White House reporter for the Associated Press. And Olivier Knox, Yahoo News chief Washington correspondent. Olivier, your thoughts on this trip so far, and obviously the specter of North Korea that hangs in the background.
Well, you've seen one foreign leader who's really managing his relationship with Donald Trump very well, and that's Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe at his stop in South Korea. I mean, it is notable that he's modulated his message on North Korea while in South Korea. That, of course, could change back. It's Donald Trump, after all. He's nothing if not unpredictable. But let's look at the rhetoric. As you did in your setup, he's gone from talking about fire and fury to maybe there's a possibility of a deal. And when he was asked whether he still viewed direct talks as a waste of time, he declined to repeat that opinion. So he's hinting at the prospects for a deal. Let's stay tuned.
Catherine.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, the comments in South Korea were notable as much for what Donald Trump didn't say as what he did say. He did not repeat, the little rocket man characterization. He did not talk about fire and fury. He suggested there was deal making to be done. He also obviously talked a lot in both of his first two stops about trade, about wanting to make trade deals, trying to convince quite publicly these leaders that they should be buying American goods, buying American military equipment.
Yeah, Tom, one of the things the president often does is he speaks in sort of a tease, what's coming up next. He did that in his last stop, in which he said his next stop in China, there will be a surprise. I mean, it's sort of like tune in to the next episode. We don't know what the surprise is going to be, but clearly this trip is consequential.
It's consequential. I think it's going well for Trump so far. There haven't been any major gaffes. He's done, I think, a reasonably good job of doing what he set out to do on the trip, which is, build support for sanctions. I think that's one of the things you reported, Brett, that there's some skittishness in the region, and particularly in South Korea. And I think that's what Trump was doing, bringing out the carrot as opposed to the stick, trying to shore up and reassure South Korea and get them on board for future sanctions and bringing the region together to do something more against North Korea. But Trump is ever the showman, trying to keep people interested and engaged in his trip, and hence the tease about the big news tomorrow.
Yeah. Meantime, Olivier, you have this other issue, the horrific shooting in Texas and the killings in that church, and obviously the issue about gun control. Take a listen.
I wonder if you would consider extreme vetting for people trying to buy a gun.
If you did what you're suggesting, there would have been no difference 3 days ago.
How is it that this person who was convicted of domestic abuse by the Air Force, how did he get through the system and get a gun?
In this case, it should have been reported and put in the database, and that's why we've launched this complete, wide, full-scale review.
Olivier.
Yeah, I think you're seeing some proposals in Congress to tighten the background check procedures. You're seeing some pledges from people who are close to the Pentagon saying, we're going to add the information we have to these national databases to prevent people, notably someone like this who was a spousal and child abuser, from getting firearms. Still no dramatic push in Congress for sweeping reversals of gun rights, but still some potentially important movement on background checks.
All right, I only have a few seconds left, and I'm going to go Tom, Catherine, then Olivier. Predictions on the governor's race in Virginia tonight. Putting you on the spot.
It's going to be close. I'll say that. That's a cop-out a little bit, Brett. But, I mean, look, this is going to be a very, very close race. It's going to be probably 1 or 2 points either way, and right now it's a toss-up.
But I think the polls have been tight, and if we know anything from last year, it's that we shouldn't put too much credence in the polls. So I think we're going to have to stay tuned.
Yeah, it's going to make for a really interesting dissection the day after the election to see what polled which candidate over the top. Some folks in the Democratic Party are talking about down-ballot Democrats helping Ralph Northam. And obviously there's that last push, that final push by Donald Trump, a robocall, some tweets, and we'll see whether those sway the outcome of the contest.
I mean, I tried to pin you down from Seoul. I figured you'd help me out, but no go. Panel, thank you very much. We will watch this race very closely, and it probably will be tight.